an AIDS activist, and I am here today because I am chilled by everything the experts who have spoken so far have shared. But I'm here today not just because I am scared, but because I am angry. Are you angry? I'm not angry because some bureaucrats might get fired. You see, the president of this organization speaks to NPR as if it's about privileged technocrats losing their jobs. That is a strategy. That's not what this is about. Who do you think built what he skillfully calls, as a propagandist, the administrative state? Who built that? You did! Everything people with HIV have fought for, disability rights activists have fought for, black radical activists have fought for, to win the dismantling of Jim Crow, to win equality at the voting booth, to win the Ryan White Care Act, to win the American with Disabilities Act, to win any shred that a government under a Democrat or a Republican would be accountable to people who are oppressed. That's what they call the administrative state. That is a lie. We built humanity and compassion in spite of what governments have wanted, not because of them. That is the reality of what they want to dismantle. On day one of the Trump administration, what they said was, we're moving too slowly. Why were they moving too slowly? Because there was a bulwark of people that are called Schedule F bureaucrats. Now, is anyone going to get angry because some well-paid people who live in Washington, D.C. get fired? No, we have to tell the truth about what it means to dismantle the administrative state. What does it mean? It means people with HIV will die without access to medicine. It means people who need abortions will die and will be criminalized because of the health care that is their right to seek. Now, why am I saying this? Because it's already taking place. We already see versions of the handbook playing out. Is that not so? So let's ignore the US for one moment and think about what these white, cisgendered male, evangelical Christian fanatics are exporting beyond the United States, are exporting into sub-Saharan Africa. HealthGap fights for an end to the AIDS crisis and a defeat of pharmaceutical industry monopolies that stand in the way of access to life-saving treatment. And you know what? We depend on a robust so-called administrative state to save lives and make the government accountable to millions of people living with HIV around the world, to queer people who need science and human rights and protection from criminalization in order to live. That's the so-called administrative state. It didn't happen on its own. It happened because hundreds of thousands and actually millions of people with HIV around the world 25 years ago stood up and said that a new program had to be built by the Clinton administration in order to save the lives of people with HIV so that triple combination therapy could be extended to people in sub-Saharan Africa the same way that AIDS activists had fought for access to treatment for everyone in the United States. Now, that program is called PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. Guess what? For the first time in more than 20 years, the Heritage Foundation is standing in the way of that life-saving program. It saved 28 million lives since its creation, is blocking its reauthorization by Congress. Is it doing it because of evidence, because of truth, because of anything at all? It's doing it because of hate and a lust for power and a recognition that if they take power in 2024 on day one of the administration, PEPFAR will not just be dismantled as we know it, it will be weaponized to export Christian evangelical hate, as well as an expansion of what's known as the global gag rule, so that every single humanitarian intervention will only be available if grantees that seek those funds take a loyalty oath and pledge that they won't use any of their money to even talk about abortion. That is completely unacceptable. And more than that, it will completely stand in the way of any effort to extend life-saving services to comrades around the world who are waiting in line for access to treatment, for decriminalization, colonial era criminalization laws that need to be taken down across East and Southern Africa, across Eastern Europe. That's what they euphemistically term the administrative state. Now, we know today that the Biden administration is not standing up effectively to the Heritage Foundation. Now, let's be honest. Politicians on all sides of the political aisle and up and down the spectrum, they love power. That's the reality. So on its own, the Democrats are not going to wake up and fight back against this very clear project to build a fascist state, a white-controlled, cisgender-maled fascist state that weaponizes PEPFAR. Let's talk about what that means. So that means that instead of delivering condoms to people who need them, instead of delivering protection to queer young people who are struggling with their sexual orientation and gender identity, they've been very clear about what they will deliver. Bibles and conversion therapy. Conversion therapy, which is torture. They are happy to stand by. In Uganda, just 2 weeks ago, people were traveling across the border between Uganda and Kenya with lube and HIV test kits. They were detained on December 28th, kept in prison cells for 2 weeks and subjected to forced anal examination, which is torture. The Heritage Foundation supports this. They want PEPFAR to be transformed from a program where these faceless Schedule F bureaucrats, which he thinks are a problem, have actually made PEPFAR one of the only development programs that's actually worth fighting for. And that's exactly why we must fight back. This backlash didn't come from nowhere. And that's what we must take hope in. So what can you do? The backlash came because we were winning. The backlash came because we are a more diverse country, because we have immigration that's making us more powerful and more accountable and led by Black and brown people. This backlash came because we are defeating HIV with human rights, with condoms, with access to comprehensive reproductive services, including abortion, including mifepristone and misoprostol, not just in the US, but in Uganda. Because we are the majority. But I would demand that all of us talk about this as it actually is. Because when we use the words of our oppressor, we lose. This program came about because we have power. Because transgender people have the courage to lead us and be visible. Because Black people, immigrants, have the courage to lead us and to create DACA, which they are incensed by. They are incensed by. So how do we win? We fight for more, not in 2025, but now. We keep yelling because guess what? The Biden administration isn't fighting for PEPFAR with the fury and the power and the indignancy that is required. Ambassador John Nkengasong, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and President Biden himself have not used every single breath to demand that this life-saving program be immediately reauthorized. So the reality is, we're not fucked. We have the power because we've shown we're powerful enough to provoke something as fascistic as Project 2025. But when the Democrats show that they're more willing to fight to aid and abet and bankroll a genocide that's already killed 25,000 people than to fight for a bipartisan program that saved 28 million lives in just 20 years of existence, pardon me if I'm a little skeptical about allowing Biden to defeat this project. We have to defeat it by waking up Joe Biden, by waking him up every single day. We can't just confront the Heritage Foundation and Trump and his henchmen. They're mafioso. It's a racket. We can't just confront them. We have to challenge President Biden. We have to challenge Democrats in Congress because they have the power now to defend and protect and expand the so-called administrative state. I actually call it a life-saving bulwark. They have to fight for it noon and night, or else we won't win. But finally, we can take hope that the only reason we're here today and the only reason we have something to defend is because of the vision and the success and the power of Black trans women, of immigrants, of people with HIV, of freedom fighters across generations who built up what they are trying to defend. And we will not go back. 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 We will